how you can track a package online? You can watch its every single move, from some warehouse halfway across the country right to your doorstep. It's this incredibly precise, super visible, and amazingly efficient system. So let's dive into an idea that asks a really simple but kind of profound question. What if we applied that exact same logic to people? I know it sounds a little bit like science fiction, right? The very idea of tracking a person's skills, their location, maybe even their performance with the same real-time data we use for a pizza. But here's the thing, this isn't fiction anymore. It's a field that's blowing up right now, and it's forcing us all to ask some pretty big questions. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, let's start with something we all know super well. We're talking about the journey of a simple package from a warehouse to our front door. We basically know this process by heart. A package gets scanned, boom, we get a notification. We can see exactly where it is while it's in transit. We know precisely when it's out for delivery, sometimes even down to the number of stops the driver has left. We have total visibility, total predictability, and the entire system is optimized for one thing, speed. It really is a marvel of modern logistics. And this, right here, is where things get really, really interesting. This is the moment where the world of logistics and the world of human resources start to collide. We're literally taking the principles of tracking goods and applying them directly to managing a company's most valuable asset, its people. And that brings us to the core concept we're digging into today, the talent supply chain. I want you to think of it as a whole new way of managing people, but with the kind of ruthless precision you'd expect from a global shipping network. So what is it, really? At its heart, the talent supply chain is all about using technology. You know, things like smart sensors, wearable devices, to gather tons of data. But instead of tracking boxes, this data is tracking people, their specific skills, and maybe even their working conditions. And the goal is to manage them more effectively, just like inventory. This whole new approach really boils down to three main goals, and they perfectly mirror the goals of a traditional supply chain: to see what you have, to predict what you're going to need, and to optimize how you use it all. So let's break down what that actually looks like in the real world. And this chart just lays it all out so clearly. It's a direct parallel. For goods, you use an RFID tag to get visibility. Well, for people, you could use a smart badge to track someone's location within a huge factory. For goods, you forecast consumer demand. For people, you forecast future labor needs. And just like you optimize a delivery route for a truck, you can optimize how employees get deployed to different projects. It's the same logic, just a different product. So let's dig into that first principle, visibility. Just imagine a manager needs a certified welder for an urgent job. Instead of firing off a bunch of emails and making phone calls, they could just look at a live dashboard that shows them exactly who has that skill and who's available right this second. That's the kind of power we're talking about with total visibility into your talent pool. Now, what's really fascinating here is how this shifts things from being reactive to being proactive. A company could analyze data coming from sensors on a production line and predict, hey, we're going to need 10% more technicians in 6 months. So HR can start recruiting before there's a problem. That's a huge shift from just reacting to shortages to actually anticipating them before they even happen. And finally, we get to optimization. And this is where it gets even more granular and maybe a little intense. Wearable devices could, in theory, monitor an employee's fatigue levels to make sure safety rules are being followed. On a bigger scale, the system could figure out the most efficient way to move whole teams between different international projects, just like a logistics company plans a massive shipment. But, of course, there is a massive, glaring difference between a person and a package. And that brings us to the most complicated, the most challenging part of this whole conversation, the human factor. This quote just cuts right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? The technology can do some truly incredible things, but it runs headfirst into these fundamental human concerns we all have about privacy, autonomy, and trust. A cardboard box doesn't mind being tracked 24/7. I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of us probably would. So this really presents a clear trade-off, two sides of the same coin. On one side, the promise is huge, right? We're talking massive gains in productivity, safer workplaces by monitoring for things like fatigue, and getting the right person to the right job faster. But on the other side, the peril is just as big. You've got the risk of creating this culture of constant surveillance, of completely eroding the trust between a company and its employees, and facing some really serious ethical questions about how all this data is being used and who's protecting it. So, all of this leaves us standing at a really critical crossroads where we're forced to weigh the undeniable benefits of pure efficiency against some very, very profound questions of ethics. So, the ultimate takeaway here isn't about whether this technology is good or bad. It's about recognizing that it's already here and its capabilities are only growing. So, the next time you hear about some new workplace optimization tool or talent mobility platform, this is the reality behind those buzzwords. The real question we all have to grapple with as employees, as managers, and just as a society is, what are the rules going to be? Where do we draw the line between optimization and just plain old oversight? That's the conversation we all need to start having, because this technology, it's definitely not waiting for us to catch up.